All righty, and we are live on this wonderful Thursday, January 16th, for a very special Dabble workshop in writing goals that actually work for you, work with you, work in ways that you want to. I see people trickling in here on my view counter. Hello, everybody. I see some chat in the chat already, some chatter in the chat. How about we go with that one to avoid any kind of repetition? But Abby was the first one to say hello. And so everyone knows that Abby Matthews in the chat there is our very own Abby Matthews, the new, I was going to say leader of the Storycraft Cafe community, the new manager of the Storycraft Cafe community. As always, I'm going to wait a little bit for everyone to trickle in. So say hello, say where you're from. If you have something in mind, list off one of the goals you want to accomplish this year in terms of writing, or not. You know, we'll keep it broad for now. Mizelle, hello. Robert, hello. David, hello. Athena, Jane, hello. Jane, hail leader. That's the new title. That's what we'll refer to Abby as from now on. Awesome. So yeah, we always wait a few minutes before things get started. Renee, hello. Awesome to see you. I do see a bunch of familiar names in the chat from Dabble Premium, but just so everyone knows, every month I put on a workshop for Dabble Premium where we dive into something about storycraft or publishing or related to writing and your author journey. This one is free for everyone. It is not a premium workshop, but if you do want more experiences like this, we do one at least every month. This month we're actually doing 2 more. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a good month. Jane wants a goal that you can actually achieve. Cool. I'll set you up. Emily, hello. It's nice to have you here. Oh, Abby thinking that Jane meant me as leader. I don't know. We'll see. We can share it. We're co-leaders. Athena wants to write out and finish your original novel draft. Awesome. Jane saying, yes, we're all premium folks, premium or not. I agree. Yes, everyone that attends these events, I appreciate you. It has been an awesome start to 2025. I love seeing all the engagement, seeing you joining us for our fireside chat or our 3 times a week writing sprints. It's been awesome. I've been absolutely loving it. You've really started 2025 off in the best way possible for us here at Dabble. Hello, Ginger. Mizelle wants to finish that first book. Hello, Amy. Abby's excited to see you. I'm excited to see you too, but Abby hit with the all caps, so. NJ, thanks for swinging by. This will be available to watch whenever. It will live on the YouTube channel, for time immemorial, as I always say, or until the heat death of the universe, whichever comes first. So feel free to watch it afterwards. Jake calls both leaders. I appreciate the flexibility. In the description box underneath me right now, you will find a link to the Dabble goal setting worksheet that goes along with this workshop. I'm going to share the link in the chat there as well. That is not something that you need to follow along with while we're doing this. You can just listen. You can take notes if you want. You can participate in the chat. It's whatever. But if you do want to follow along, it's set up for you. There will be one exercise that I will go through, and that is on the sheet, but might take you upwards of 20, 30 minutes if you really dive into it in full depth. So obviously that's not something we can do together since it will be very personal, but the worksheet's there. The exercise will be there. Ginger saying these sessions feel like a perpetual writers conference. Need to lay some bagels and donuts out on a hospitality table. Well, I'm also a bit of a coffee snob, so my gut instinct when I see bagels and donuts on a hospitality table, like one of those folding plastic tables, is just bad coffee. So at least you'd know if it was me, it would be good coffee. Kim just got here. Well, welcome. I'm going to wait another 30 seconds or so to get started. So thank you for joining us. Awesome. Okay, yeah. We usually wait for 5 minutes, let everyone trickle in. Again, I will reiterate, this will be available to rewatch or watch after the fact if you're not joining us live, whenever you want. We will be on our YouTube channel. We'll share it in the community. I'm saying we, I mean Abby will hopefully do that for me because she knows that I'm bad at making community posts. And make sure to click that link below me or the one in the chat to grab the worksheet that goes along with this one. We are about to hit the 5-minute mark. Since we get started, I'm going to take a sip of water, which my premium Dabble folk know that that's a common occurrence in workshops. And then we will get started. The more self-deprecating humor I make about it, the less uncomfortable I feel about it. All right. So for those who haven't attended a workshop before, I'm going to pull up the presentation. We're going to go through it. It is a slide deck, but there's going to be a lot of conversation here, especially this one. I am aiming for about the hour to an hour and a half mark for this one. If you have to bail early, I'm not going to hold it against you. Very happy for anyone that can join us for however long you can. But let's get started. Writing goals that actually work. And I was a little tongue-in-cheek when I titled this workshop the way that I titled it. But I think it kind of raises a valid point in that there are so many instances in our lives where we set goals, whether intentionally or casually or passively, and they don't end up working for us. Either we find that we can't do them, we kind of lose motivation to do them, or they were just set up in a way that didn't set us up for success. That is my ultimate goal with this workshop, is to show you ways to take something that you want, and we are all writers here. I know we all want to write in one form or another. So take something that you want and make something that is actionable, that is realistic, and that will encourage you to get to where you want to go. All right, let's get into it. So our agenda for today, we are in the introduction. You are here. We're going to talk about why we set goals. We're going to set some initial goals. We're going to dig deeper. That's going to be a very important exercise that I want everyone to take away from this. We're going to talk about SMART goals. Some people might groan when they hear the word, or the acronym, I guess, SMART, when it comes to goal setting, but I promise I'm going to make it digestible and effective for you. We're going to build your roadmap. We're going to talk about rewarding yourself, then some time for Q&A, and we'll wrap up. So who am I? I know a lot of folks here recognize me, but some people may be new, may just be seeing this mug for the first time. So hi, I'm Doug. I work here at Dabble, primarily doing premium content and dealing with the premium experience for Dabble Premium. But I also do live streams like writing sprints and like fireside chats. I've written over 100 articles for Dabble U. Those are all free articles available over at dabblewriter.com. And I've written 2 ebooks with Dabble. I've written 5 books. 3 of them were #1 new releases. 1 of them was a #1 bestseller. Outside of writing, I'm a husband, a dog dad, an editor, a nerd, a dungeon master, horror movie fanatic. I love hiking. But like when I say hiking, I made this mistake with a friend the other day. I like those, 1 to 2, maybe 3-hour hikes, those little adventures. I do not love like the 12-hour portaging in between, getting bit by mosquitoes all the time. That's not the hiking I'm talking about. Very relevant for this chat. All right. With all of our workshops, we have 3 expectations that I ask that you adhere to. #1, ask questions. If you have a question about something, if you're curious about something, if you want something expanded on, pop it in the chat. Collaborate is our second one. I will do my best to answer the questions. We may save some for the Q&A at the end, but if you have expertise about something, if you have experience or knowledge, feel free to share that in the chat. We're here to help one another. Or if you just want to share what you want, I'm going to be asking you about your goals as we go through this. Feel free to collaborate with one another, encourage each other, share your own ideas and goals. It's going to be a good time. Lastly, be kind. This one has never come up in a workshop before, but any kind of hate or intolerance or putting anyone else down, you're going to get the boot. I don't have time for that. I don't want it here. We're just going to have a great time in this workshop. Okay, so let's start out with, why do we set goals? And this might seem like a dumb question, for lack of a better term. There's no such thing as dumb questions. And I really want to start here because we all know what goals are. We've all set goals before. I think we all want to achieve goals, but what's the point? Is there science behind it? Why do we do this? So when set properly, goals can do a lot for you. They are a source of motivation. And when you take the time to think about your goals and set the right ones, they will help you when motivation is waning. I think everybody in watching this now or afterwards has experienced writer's block of some kind, or we've experienced days where we know we should write and we just don't feel like it. Properly set goals can help you get past that. Now, one of the best ways, and you'll hear this a few more times throughout this workshop, one of the best ways that you can leverage goals is by creating what we call a positive feedback loop. And that is because goals are meant to be reached. Okay, goals are not dreams. They are not unattainable. They should be attainable. And when you reach them, you get the satisfaction of reaching them. You get the benefit of whatever you accomplished, progressing you further towards a bigger goal or what have you. And you should give yourself some kind of reward for getting there. And that way, when we do that over and over again, when we actually reach that goal, get the benefits and get the reward, our brain starts saying, hey, I really like this. I want to do it more. And then it will start motivating itself because you have something to reach for and your brain knows that it gets that little dopamine hit. That's the biggest benefit of goals. They help you plan. Things rarely happen just because. I wish they did. Oh, imagine if life worked like that. But that's not how it works out. Things don't just happen because we want them to happen. We actually have to go out and make them happen. And goals really help out with that. They keep you accountable. Writing them down, sharing them with people in the Storycraft Cafe, here in the comments, with your partner, with your best friend, whomever. The act of making it physical in text or making it burrow itself into someone else's head makes you more accountable and more likely to complete those goals. And then they help you make progress because it's not just about hitting that destination. Again, things don't happen just because. We have to have this plan to get there. And so goals let us see what that roadmap looks like. And we're actually going to build that in this workshop so you can see what those bite-sized pieces are. Because you do not just go from A to B, right? You go from A to, I should have chosen a different letter, but A.1, A.2, A.3. You get what I'm saying. There are many steps in between you and the goal that you want. And that's a good thing. Okay. Focus on that. That's a good thing. So when we bring this back to writing, writing is a lot. Let's be real. Writing a book, editing a book, publishing a book, those are all big undertakings. And if you want to get a book from idea to out there in readers' hands, you're doing all of those big undertakings. And until you've established your own process, until you have, 10 books out there and you can almost muscle memory go through the steps you need to get from idea to finished draft, just saying, I want to finish my book isn't a goal that's working for you. Now, if you said that was your goal, I'm not holding it against you. I think it's a good place to start, but it is not something that is actively working for you. And we're going to turn into that. So I asked for some initial thoughts on goals. I got a couple in the chat, but what I would like to do, either on the worksheet or in the chat here, or both, start jotting down initial goals that come to mind in the following 3 categories. And I would love if you were able to get one in each. It's a short-term goal, which is 1 to 3 months away, medium term, so 3 to 6 months away, and long term, up to a year or more away from now. We're focusing on the end results. So if your long-term goal is to finish your first draft, you don't need to establish a writing habit as a short-term goal. We're going to work on that. We're going to get that in there. And again, don't stress if one of those answers is, I want to write my book. That's perfectly fine. When I did this myself, let me just open up my handy dandy notebook here. My short-term goal is to finish the first draft of the book that I'm currently working on. It is about, I'm hoping, 10,000 words away from being done. So I want to be done that in the next 2 weeks. My medium-term one, write a horror novel. Again, these are just gut instinct goals. So in the next 3 to 6 months, I want to write the first draft of a horror novel. And then a long-term goal, and one that I'm going to bring up again throughout this workshop, is I want to build my email list. That's something that I want to accomplish this year. Athena's short-term goal, write out your 0 draft, medium, edit it, long, maybe publish it. Apparently Shift Enter doesn't work. Well, I appreciate it nonetheless. I will also say, if you want to share something in the chat and you don't want me to talk about it, to focus on it, to give any kind of feedback, put a little asterisk at the beginning of your message, and I will read it, I will smile, but I won't bring it up or highlight it on screen or anything like that. Ooh, Jane trying to get some brownie points. Fill out the plot grid for my novel. I think that's an excellent short term. Awesome. I'll let a few more trickle in before we carry on. And if you are following along on the worksheet or just following along kind of in your head, we are going to use one of these goals going forward, preferably a longer term one, because you'll get more out of the exercises. But Kim here, short term, finish final edits, medium term, give to friendly readers for continuity, and long term, final editor and publish. I love it, Kim. Jane, I gotta learn to plot. All right, we'll get something. We'll get something up there. Sunza saying, write enough to have something that can become a novel in the short term, medium, first draft, not necessarily complete, and long, done at least one rewrite. Excellent. Awesome. All right. And then Jane, write the first draft for medium term, long term, get it edited. Okay, excellent. And Brain wants to finish this 120,000 word draft by June. Awesome. Awesome. Renee coming in, finish first revision in the short term, medium term, continue working on my author website. Ooh. Now Renee is trying to get brownie points here. And the long term goal, find an editor. Excellent. Okay, let us move on here. If you are still if you're still typing it out, if you're still thinking about it, feel free to drop it whenever. I might comment on it. I might just be moving on, but I appreciate all the engagement nonetheless. Okay, this is like my Dabble Premium people will know that often in workshops I'll say, if there's one thing you can take away from this workshop, this is it. And sometimes I say it more than once, but I'm aware of that flaw. But flaws make characters interesting. But this is, if there's one thing you can take away from this workshop, it would be this. I think this can change a lot of minds when it comes to goal setting. Okay, so why are your goals important to you? Your gut reaction goals are actually usually one part of a bigger dream, or a bigger, what I tend to call, an ultimate goal. When you can connect your goal to something more meaningful, it becomes exponentially more powerful. And that's what we're going to do in this section. Now, this might sound a little insubstantial. It might sound a little, for lack of a better term, like wooey or metaphysical or something. It might sound silly to you. But I want you to start asking why this goal is important. Why do you think you want to accomplish this goal? And we're going to go through an exercise that I borrowed slash totally ripped off from a friend of mine. And he's a financial planner, and he uses this same goal exercise for money with his clients. But I think it is just so applicable to any kind of goal. So we're going to use it for writing here. So this dig deeper exercise is best done with a partner, but I don't have anyone on screen. And again, this is the thing that can take up to half an hour if you're doing it with a partner. So either follow along with me on your worksheet in the chat if you want, or just listen, do it later with somebody. Again, more effective with a partner because they can kind of push you a little bit when you think you're done, but not mandatory, right? So you're going to take one of your goals from the previous exercise. You're going to write it down. There's space in your worksheet if you want to. You can write it down on a piece of paper. You can type it down in a note in Dabble, wherever you want it. Then you're going to ask yourself, why is this important to me? Whatever the answer is to that question, and be honest, you're going to write it down underneath your goal. Then you're going to take that answer. You're going to ask yourself the same thing. Why is this important to me? You're going to keep doing that until you either can't find a deeper answer or you have something that just clicks. And it might sound silly. Again, it might sound repetitive. It might sound useless, but I guarantee there is value in this value exercise. Okay. You also might find some big emotions here. This exercise is meant to dig really deep into what means something to you. You might not have big emotions. You might already know what your answers are going to be before you even get to the fifth layer of why is this important to me. And you might end up with an ultimate goal that is nothing like the original one, but they are connected. The idea is that you keep going, you keep doing this until you're sitting there for a couple minutes and you can't think of anything else. You kind of reach the final destination. And that couple minutes is actually important, which is why we can't necessarily do it live. But I want you, when you answer, not just say, okay, that's it. I want you to sit there, stare at it, think about it. And that's why a partner is helpful in this situation, because you will have the tendency to say, that's the answer. I'm done this silly exercise, Doug. But they will say, no, I think there's something actually deeper here. Now, the partner, if you're using one, their role isn't to just force you towards an answer or kind of bias your answers. They're just there to kind of keep you accountable. So here's an example. And I took my long-term one, I added a number to it to make it a little more specific. But I want to get my email list to 10,000 people this year. That's my long-term goal. Okay. Why is this important to me? An email list is the best marketing tool an author can have. This is tried and true, proven. People generate tons of income from their email list when they write new books. Why is that important to me? So I can sell more books, I can have better launches, and I can foster a community of readers around my books. Why is this important to me? I can further progress my author career. Why is this important to me? I can get closer to earning a sustainable income from my writing. Why is this important to me? You might notice, because we're running out of space here, this is going to be the last time I ask this. I'm able to live the life I want while devoting my work to something fulfilling. Again, might sound a little wooey to you, but there is a lot of value in this statement, and it took 5 levels of digging. Yep, did that math right? To get there. And so when I say I want to get my email list to 10,000 people this year, what I really mean is I want to live the life I want while devoting my work to something fulfilling. Those two statements are the same thing, just phrased differently. The one on the left, the one about my email list, is a building block to the one on the right. But if I said to you or to my mom or to my wife or to my best writing friend, I want to get my email list to 10,000 people this year, what I'm really saying is I want to get closer to living the life I want while devoting my work to something fulfilling. Jane's saying, cool way to think of it. It is a cool way to think of it. And when you start framing your goals this way, they start having a lot more meaning. I know that building my email list is important, but saying I want to build my email list isn't meaningful, right? It doesn't have a more purpose driven aspect to it. It doesn't have an immediate impact on my larger life beyond something that is very practical, right? And so when when I'm trying to motivate myself, when motivation is lacking and maybe my email list building isn't going the way I want it to, it's a lot easier to give up if my goal is getting 10,000 people on there. It's a lot harder to give up when it's saying, okay, I no longer want to live the life I want while devoting my work to something fulfilling. Okay. There's nothing woo. As soon as I'm saying there's nothing woo woo about that, honestly. And I'm going to be the reason I keep saying it is because when I was first introduced to this exercise by my friend, I thought it was a little woo woo. I thought it, and forgive me if that's like a demeaning term. I'm trying to think of something better, but I'm also just talking here. Um, but I thought it was fluff. I thought it was something that he did to just try and like get more clients, to have them see money in a different way. And they do see money in a different way, but they start seeing it in a way that matters to them. And I think writing is important to all of us. And for people who are serious about, indie publishing or just publishing their books in general, an email list will be an important thing for you. But an email list on its own is not a super motivating thing. And it's not a purpose driven thing. If you can find the core reason why you want to accomplish this goal, it's going to do you a lot better. Kim saying I did an exercise similar to this before and agree it's super helpful. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, give me a second here to just read a message. Kim saying the goal is for story structure, but even more so it's because I want validation that I'm a real writer. See, that's a value-driven statement. That's a value-driven goal, is getting that validation as a real writer. And you'll probably find that is also part, you can probably dig even deeper than that. Why do you want validation as a real writer? Right? You can keep going. It usually goes down to these higher tier moral things, like fulfillment, like living the life you want, like freedom, creativity, art. Those kinds of topics will usually be the ones that you're looking for in your final why is this important. Okay. So if you find your what you really mean, you find your dig deeper statement, your ultimate goal, as I call it. My ultimate goal is that I want to live the life I want while devoting my work to something fulfilling. And to be clear, I already do work that is very fulfilling. Doing this kind of workshop with you all, doing our live events, helping writers write their work is very fulfilling. I'm talking about writing specifically here. But once you find it, what do you do with it? So you write it down. You put it somewhere where you can see it every day. That might be a sticky note on your monitor. That might be, some people write on their mirrors. I don't do that because this is not my thing. But if that's your thing, do it. You see it every day. Write it on a whiteboard. Put it on a sticker. Get it on a sticker. Put it on your laptop. Somewhere you see it every day. Whenever your motivation is waning, I want you to picture this ultimate goal. Again, if I'm having a tough time getting my email list building, thinking about what I really want, my ultimate goal, will motivate me a lot more than just this 10,000 people one. You need to acknowledge that this ultimate goal is not something you're going to accomplish by the end of this year, though. All of the goals that we're going to be working with, and we will continue with this 10,000 email list one, is something that can be accomplished this year, but is all pieces to the larger ultimate goal. And I could take any of the writing goals that I've written down in my notebook, in emails, on posts, whatever. They will inevitably all lead to that point, right? That is the ultimate goal. And remember, all of them leading there means that they are all the same. And that's something you can remind yourself about as you go forward. Let me see here. Athena saying, I want to write my first original draft because it proves to me and others I'm just as valid an author. Kid me would love to write professionally, so if I achieve my goal, I get to live that dream. That's fantastic, Athena. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So yeah, again, that is on the worksheet. It is not something I expect you to finish in the 5 minutes it took me, maybe more than that, to go through that section. And it is more effective with a partner who knows you and can kind of be like, okay, this isn't the end, right? There is something more here, or you're just giving up too early. Okay, now we are transitioning from something a little more high level to something a little more science based, let's say. And I shouldn't say that, because there is science behind motivation and purpose and aiming for those bigger goals. But there are studies that I can point to about SMART goals that are helpful. So that's what I immediately think of when we get here. I am confident most, if not everyone here, has heard of SMART goals. If you have not, they are expanded, detailed goals that leverage psychology to make them more impactful. SMART is an acronym, and some people choose different words to go along with this, but generally you're looking at specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And the whole point of SMART goals is that the smarter your goal is, the more likely you are to stick to it and accomplish it, and thus the more you are able to set yourself up for success. Does every goal need to be a SMART goal? No. You can set goals that are not SMART goals. However, SMART goals are more likely to be accomplished, or you are more likely to accomplish them. Okay. And I would even venture to say that the more letters of SMART that you can fulfill, the more you are setting yourself up for success. And we're going to fill out all of them. Okay? And hopefully, again, in a way that seems practical and impactful for you. So let's talk about each. Specific. The more you dial in on what you actually want, the easier it will be to visualize it. So the more details you add to a goal, the easier it is to call up that endpoint when you really need it. So what do you need to accomplish? Does finishing your book mean finishing the first draft, or does it mean publishing it? What steps do you need to take? We're dedicating a whole section to this, so hang tight on this one. And can you picture it? There is power in being able to visualize yourself in a particular spot. You can call it manifesting, you can call it visualizing, you can call it just imagining, whatever you want it to be. There is motivation in being able to visualize you having your book finished, seeing it on a bookshelf, having it reviewed by a New York Times critic, whatever that goal is. If you can picture it, you can get there more easily. Yes. Not faster necessarily, not easier, but more easily, one might say. And the more details, the more specific you are about your goal, the easier it is to picture it. Measurable. Quantifying your goals makes it a heck of a lot easier to see how far you've come, what's left, and when you've actually reached that destination. So when possible, can you quantify your goal? That might feel hard in something like writing, because there's a lot of subjectivity, there's a lot of creativity to it. Your book, the average in your genre might be a 75,000 word novel, but is your book going to be 75,000 words? You might say you want to finish 5 chapters in the next month, but how many words are those chapters? How do you figure that out? There's not going to be a perfect answer, but if you can give yourself a target to work towards, you can leverage the power of that measurable aspect of SMART goals. So if the average is 75,000 words for your genre, set that as your original goal. If yours is shorter than that at the end, okay, you reach your goal sooner. If yours is longer than that, then maybe you realize you either need to put in some more effort to reach the same deadline, or you just need a little more time to work on it, but you're still working away in chunks and you can see your progress. And then you need to figure out what's actually considered progress. If I said to you, I want to write a 100,000 word book, am I talking the first draft version or the polished, perfect version that I'm ready to query to agents or set up for indie publishing? Attainable. So this is me repeating the thing I said I was going to repeat from the beginning. Goals are meant to be reached. There is no sense, there is no uh, need or motive or purpose to setting a goal that you cannot reach, right? You can have dreams that will be very, very difficult to reach, and goals should require effort to get to, but they should be attainable. And that way you can generate that positive feedback loop. This is why we're focusing on those short, medium, and long term goals and not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal, again, is not something you're going to reach this year for 99.9% of people, right? But those smaller ones, the ones that build up to your ultimate goal, you can reach those. And the more of those you knock out, the more you progress on that journey towards the ultimate goal by dealing with these smaller goals, the closer you get to the ultimate goal. And then eventually you will be that 0.1% this year where you reach the pinnacle of exactly what you want. So, is your goal something that you can reasonably accomplish? This is going to take a lot of introspective work, and try to be as objective as possible when you're talking to yourself about this. If your goal is to write a 100,000 word book and you know you only have 15 minutes a day to write, and you know you only not only you know you write 250 words in 15 minutes, I don't have a calculator with me to do that math, but I can tell you that's not 100,000 in the span of a year, right? So, okay, actually, before anyone calls me out on that, right, that's 91,250 words in a full calendar year. So, whew. So, but that is close to it. So that might be reasonable. You might be able to push extra hard one day, but also be reasonable about how attainable that is, because there will be days when you don't write. There will be days when you think that you can write, and then something's going to come up and it's going to take that time away from you. So just try and be aware of what your own limitations are, what your commitments are, what your family needs, what your living situation needs, what the bills need you to do, and work around that to come up with something that you can actually accomplish in the time frame you want to accomplish it in. Relevant. This is why we started with that exercise that I really like, because if you can connect your goal to a future that you want, it just makes it that much easier to accomplish. So why are you setting this goal? Not every goal needs to have this deep meaning behind it, right? And that's perfectly okay. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It just means it might be harder to stick to when the motivation isn't there, or it might just be harder for you to visualize the end. It is not as easy to stick to as something that has purpose behind it. And then think about if this goal is part of another one. Does something need to be done before this, or is this something that precedes another thing? That adds relevancy to it as well. It's not just about the deeper meaning, it's about progress at the same time. And then time bound, our last letter in the SMART acronym. And this one, I I get some pushback from people on this one sometimes, but bear with me for a sec here. It's really easy to kick the can when you don't have a deadline, right? Making a goal time bound gives you something to work with, and in an ideal world, if you set your goals properly, applies the appropriate amount of pressure to keep you motivated. So, first ask if your deadline works for you. A deadline too soon, you're going to burn yourself out, you're going to hate everything, and you might not even accomplish your goal in the time that you've given yourself. A deadline too far out, you're going to end up kicking the can. I am so bad for this. If I give myself too far of a deadline and don't establish milestones in between, then it's a race to get it finished in the last 10% of the original deadline. That's for me, this is especially important. And like I just mentioned there, can you create milestones? Most goals, especially larger goals, can be broken up into smaller steps, and you can establish deadlines for each of those, so it's not so daunting and it's not so overwhelming. Like 10 smaller tasks is a lot more manageable than one massive task. So when I said I get kickback on this a lot, some people will say to me that deadlines are, well, for Jane, they're the toughest thing to stick to. But some people will say to me that deadlines are not for them. Deadlines make goals harder. They stress them out. They cannot handle deadlines. They're not a deadline person. To which I say, that's okay. Okay. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I don't know you personally. Only you know you, and those closest to you know you. So I cede that to you. However, However, I will also say that people are victims of their past experiences. They're victims of their perception. They are prone to their own notion of what they can and can't do, even if they have grown from who they used to be when they last tried this. And on top of that, progress doesn't come from doing the easiest things all the time, right? Nothing really great comes from the easy route. Things don't just happen, like we said before. So, if you think that you aren't a deadline person and you don't, Jane saying here, as a caregiver and a person with a chronic illness, deadlines are the toughest things to stick to. So, obviously, there are things that I cannot envelop with this blanket statement. But if you think that deadlines stress you out, try setting up an appropriate schedule for yourself. Try seeing if you have become a different person than the person who was stressed out by the last deadline, or maybe you set up an inappropriate deadline that was too short or too long. Give yourself a chance to prove yourself wrong when it comes to something like this. Okay. There will always be extenuating circumstances. There will always be things that make things difficult for us. And sometimes having a time bound goal and having a deadline just won't work. But for a lot of people, I think you are lacking the confidence in yourself to do something like this that makes goals more powerful. Okay. That's my spiel on deadlines. And I don't want to minimize anyone's experiences. I don't want to minimize your mental health. I've said time and time again in these live events that mental health is the most important thing when it comes to writing, right? That writing revolves around your life, not the other way around. But give yourself a chance to prove yourself wrong sometimes. Okay, so my previous goal, I want to get my email list to 10,000 people this year. That is not a smart goal. It might look like a smart goal because I say 10,000 in it. That's a number. And I say this year. That's a time, right? But if we smarten it up a little bit, we get something like, I will grow my email list to 10,000 individuals by December 31st, 2025, so I can have more successful launches, grow my community, and sell more books. That is a much smarter goal. Does it leverage everything in the SMART acronym? No, but we're going to get to that in a second. But it is much smarter. So specific how, there is some more specificity in there, but we're going to tackle that part next. It's measurable. I have 10,000 individuals in there. Attainable. 10,000 is not an easy number to hit, but I already have 1 to 2,000 people on my list. I need to clean it up a little bit. And it's doable with proper planning. We're in January, right? It's relevant. I included why it's relevant, right? I can have more successful launches, grow my community, and sell more books. And I know that directly links to my ultimate goal because I did the exercise before. And it's time bound. This year is not time bound. That is, 11 months and 15 days worth of time that this goal could be accomplished by. I'm saying it needs to be accomplished by the last day of the year. So I'm still giving myself that window, but I'm giving myself a firm deadline to work towards. There's also something that I want to focus on here. And I know I don't need to preach to us writers about the power of words, but I need to remind you there are power in words. So if we go back and look, I want to get my email list to 10,000 people this year, or I will grow my email list. That is a very small difference, but when you reflect on your goal regularly and when you find your motivation is lacking, that change in verbiage goes a heck of a long way in getting you going. So if you're setting goals, or when you set goals, because I want everyone who's watching this now or afterwards, I want you to set the most effective goals you can. And I want you to do it with the level of detail that I'm showing you here. And when you do it, I don't want to hear wants. I don't want to hear cans. I want to hear wills. Okay. I felt so bossy there. All right, here's another example. I want to finish the first draft of my novel. It's not a bad goal, but it is not a smart goal. Let's smarten it up a little bit. I will finish the first draft of my 100,000 word novel by August 31st so I can start querying it before the end of the year. Again, there's more stuff you can add to this, but if we look at it, we have that change in verbiage. So it's more powerful, it's more motivating. We have some more details and something measurable with a 100,000 word novel. We have August 31st. As the deadline, and then we have a relevancy so I can start querying it before the end of the year. What this goal leaves open is some time between the querying and the first draft being done where you can build additional goals onto that, because you're going to need to revise, make sure it's the best draft possible, get beta feedback, research agents, then start querying it. But this is a much smarter goal than this initial one, and thus it is much more likely to be accomplished and much easier to plan around. And that's what we're talking about next. We're going to build a roadmap here. Again, if you have any questions about this kind of stuff, mostly about writing goals, but any kind of questions too, send them in the chat. If they are relevant to what we were talking about immediately, I'll address them then. Otherwise, I will save them for a Q&A period at the end. I'm actually sticking to a good time this time around. We're only 40 minutes in. I'm a master of time management now, and no one can tell me otherwise. All right. So let's add the finishing touches. Ideally, at this point, like live, no, maybe afterwards when you do the exercises, or if you've just been following along on the worksheet at a good pace, you have your important why, your ultimate goal, and you have a smarter goal than what you started with. Now we're going to break this down into the components that we need. I've touched on this before with milestones, but we are going to figure out exactly what you need to get from A to Z. I'm not going with B this time because we got all those letters in between to work with now. And this really leverages the specific part of the SMART acronym that I think really gets left out. Because a lot of people, we go back, a lot of people can say that this revised goal is specific. We have some details in there, but we can get a heck of a lot more specific. Now, the way you go about this is up to you. Again, I don't know what works best for you. I'm going to show you what works best for me. And in that case, I like working backwards from my deadline or the finished product, figuring out what I need in reverse, and then planning it out by then going forwards, right? So backwards, then forwards. I'll show you. And quite frankly, I could not cover every way of brainstorming how to get the different components of your goal. But here's an option. Do what works for you. Try a couple different options if you want. But yeah, let's see how this works out. So how do we get there? I will grow my email list to 10,000 individuals by December 31st, 2025, so I can have more successful launches, grow my community, and sell more books. So I know to get to that number, I need to run newsletter swaps and promotions. Okay. And that includes signing up for services like BookFunnel, networking with authors, and establishing a monthly newsletter. Now, to do a monthly newsletter, I have to create email sequences. I have to set up email sign up. I have to finish a lead magnet. I have to clean up my email list. To finish my lead magnet, I need to get the cover and formatting done, which happens after editing, which happens after beta feedback, after my revisions, after I finish the first draft, after I've outlined it, which happens after I've brainstormed it. Okay. So you can see there's a lot of components that go into this one sentence of wanting to get to 10,000 people by the end of the year so I can progress my author career. And once you write it all out like this, you start getting a better understanding of what exactly this goal entails. The purpose of this is not to overwhelm you or make goals seem insurmountable because there's so much stuff to do. The purpose of this is to show you exactly what's going into that goal of yours so that you can plan appropriately. Remember, this is going to be a roadmap. It's not going to be just overwhelming noise. Okay. And there might be more things that go into these, and you might have to do research before you set these up, right? Because of my job, because of the fact that I've been doing this publishing thing for, I don't know how many years now, 6, maybe. I've encountered this information before, right? That's one of the luxuries I've had. So it's easier for me, but you might need to add research into this step. Just a quick thing here from Athena. When you say lead magnet, does that refer to the book or more like author news? That refers to a novella that I will be giving away for free in exchange for email signups. And that's something that in Dabble Premium, we're going to be doing a case study about all year long. Like, this goal is a real goal for me. This whole thing that I'm asking you to do, I did myself, and that's how much I believe in it. And I want to track the progress towards this goal so that everyone in Dabble Premium who's never seen it before can see what that process looks like in building an email list. All right. So now this is all the stuff that would need to get done. I have the luxury again of having some of these things done already. During the 60-day novel challenge, I wrote my lead magnet, the first draft of it, and I already have an email sign up to collect email addresses. So I can cross some things off my list, right? And if that's the case with you, great. There's just a couple less things for you to do. Then you're going to take all of those things and you're going to give them deadlines too, because again, things don't just happen. These deadlines can be a little more malleable. All deadlines can be malleable. Again, the idea is to get you to reach this goal, not stress you out. But by giving things deadlines, you can start planning out what your year is going to look like or what your next 6 months is going to look like and make sure it's realistic, right? We want this to be attainable. Kim, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad your car's fixed. So I'm not going to go through one by one here, but things have deadlines and some things have like beta reader feedback due April 30th, 2025 from my beta readers. And then I incorporate their feedback over the next 2 weeks. Right? You'll note that number 5 on the list here, create email sequences, is February 28th, when everything before that happened sooner than that. Because I just, again, going forward, I'm putting these dates in. And that's to show you that not everything has to happen sequentially. I can create email sequences and clean up my email list before my lead magnet's done. There's nothing stopping me from doing that. So don't feel like you're trapped in doing one thing after another when you can do things at the same time, if life permits, right? And then once you get those dates, once you figure out all the things you need to reach that goal that you want, put them in order so that they are chronological, so that is an actual roadmap for you, and put it underneath your goal. So now my goal, at the risk of sounding repetitive, is I will grow my email list to 10,000 individuals by December 31st, 2025, so I can have more successful launches, grow my community, and sell more books. And I will do that by doing these 10 things. Okay. This is a heck of a lot better goal than I will grow my email list, right? Not just because it's more detailed, but because it is an actionable plan. It gives me steps that I need to take. It gives me progress that I can measure, and it gives me dates to have it accomplished by so that it is attainable for me. If I went through and did these dates and these deadlines and they weren't realistic, then I need to adjust my goal, right? Which means that if you go through and put dates down and take a step back, say, is this realistic? Get an outside perspective. Get your partner or your friend or your boss, I don't know, someone who knows your schedule and your workload and your commitments. Ask them if this looks realistic for you, if your goal can be attainable based off of the dates that you put down. And if they say no, then you need to revisit when your goal needs to be done by. Right? Hank, in a lot of our chats, has talked about the benefit of anonymity for new authors. And I know a lot of dabblers are new authors out there who are writing their first book or writing their first, second, or third book. And so you have this gift of anonymity in that the only deadlines you set are for yourself. And so it might take some trial and error to figure out what timeline actually works for you and what your roadmap looks like in the way that helps you the most. Because again, we are setting goals to help you, goals that work for you, goals that can be accomplished. So if you start out on this, if this looks realistic for you now, and you start out and you realize, no, I need 6 more months on the end of this, that's okay. No one's going to shame you for pushing your goal out. No one's going to make fun of you for taking care of yourself and doing something that will actually work for you and your passion, right? That's the great gift of anonymity. Now, when you get a couple books out there, you're going to start having fans that'll be like, where's the next book, Doug? How come I don't have the next book, Doug? Doug, where is it? I want to read it. Now you have a little more external pressure for deadlines, right? And you don't have that gift of anonymity anymore. So take this time, if you're early in your author journey or your author career, take the time to just figure out what works best for you and stick to that. Now, with all this on the screen, we're still missing something. And I think a lot of people who went through the 60-day novel challenge with me or NaNoWriMo with me might know what I'm about to talk about. And that's going to be that you deserve a little treat. So I think this is what, the third or fourth time. Goals are supposed to create a positive feedback loop. They are supposed to be attainable. They're supposed to be hard work, but they're supposed to leave you wanting more. This is your chance to trick your brain into thinking, okay, yes, the goal is meaningful. I have progressed by accomplishing this goal, but I'm giving myself an extra special reward as a great job, Doug. You've actually did this thing that you said you would do. This is an important part of goal setting. Okay. And I don't want you to skip this or think that it's just a nice to have or be like, I don't want to give myself a little treat for doing some menial task, but positive feedback is a thing, or positive reinforcement is a thing, right? It works. It works on dogs. It works on animals. It works on people. It works on you and I. Apps on your phone leverage it all the time to become incredibly addictive. So why don't you leverage it for something that you really want to do? So I'm going to give you 5 tips to create your rewards, because again, I can't tell you what rewards you want, but I can give you some stuff to think about when you're setting up your rewards. And the first is to match your rewards to your milestones. Shorter term goals have smaller rewards. That's just the way it is, but that keeps those bigger goals more valuable because you get a bigger reward for them. So short term goals: favorite snack, rent a movie. I like an hour of guilt-free gaming, but this is something I need to say, is that rewards should feel special, even if they're little tiny rewards. And so I play video games all the time throughout the week, but I tend to play video games when the chores are done, right? When the dog's been walked, when dinner's been cooked and cleaned, when I've spent time with my better half. That's not a chore, in case she ever watches this afterwards or any of you meet her. But but when I say like guilt-free gaming, okay, maybe I work with my wife and say, okay, I accomplished this important task to me. I want to reward myself to help this journey that I'm on. Can you take care of the dog and dishes after dinner? And I can use this time to instigate that positive reinforcement. Like it, this is not something that you're in by yourself. This is something that you can leverage the people around you to help make more effective. And honestly should, because if I were to just say, no, I'm not walking the dog or cleaning up after dinner, that would just be rude and, bad partnership. Medium term goals, something a little more special, something potentially more expensive, a new book, upgrading like to a fancy notebook if you really love that kind of stationary stuff, enjoying a nice meal out. Long term goals, those big achievements, finishing your book, getting published, hitting that milestone on your email list. You want something more memorable, like a weekend getaway, something that you've been having your eye on for a while but haven't really taken the plunge for, a little retreat. All of this, though, leads me to the next tip: keep your budget in mind. Finances are like my one author mission to keep people aware of whenever I do something like this, because it's easy to read this last slide and be like, okay, I can't afford a weekend getaway to celebrate writing a book, right? And if you get to a stage in your author career where you're writing 3 books a year, you might not be able to afford 3 weekend getaways. So if that's the case, just make sure that you are sticking to your budget, because there are so many things out there that are low cost or free that you can reward yourself with and still make it feel special. I love exploring new places and again going for those 1 to 3 hour hikes with my wife and my dog. So maybe for finishing a book, we go camping for a weekend in a place we've never been before that's maybe 4 hours away rather than an hour away. That's extra special, but a weekend campground site costs $20, the gas to get there, and then groceries that we would be buying anyway. It's a lot more low cost. It might be a day in the park just hanging out under a tree reading your book while your partner takes care of the chores at home. There are a lot of different ways that you can be mindful of your budget when you're rewarding yourself, and I encourage you to do so, because going into debt for your writing, especially when it's your first book that will not generate a huge income, keep this in mind. Jane here. For me, quiet time to work without interruption is the most valuable. I love that. And again, that's something that you work with other people to make possible. All right, tip number 3. Making it personal equals making it exciting. Tailor your rewards to what excites and motivates you. I listed off half a dozen 2 slides ago of things that could work. Some of you might have just said, oh, that those are all awful. I'm not interested in any of those. The more you personalize it, the more special you make the reward, the more your brain says, I really love this. Let's do it again and again. And I really want to work towards that big special thing. If you love stationery, fancy planner. If you're a coffee lover like me, coffee can already be kind of pricey to get good quality beans, but like splurge on the top shelf, if that's the term you can use for coffee. But those imported, extra special, you would never spend this normal grocery budget in your life, but this is a special moment, so get them kind of beans. Tip number 4, share your wins. And I'm not just saying this because I know Abby's in the chat, but celebrate publicly. Post milestone accomplishments or goal accomplishments on social media, in your writing community, or with your friends. That acknowledgement and encouragement from others can be a reward in itself, though I would not include that as the actual reward for meeting your goals. The Storycraft Cafe is Dabble's community of writers, dabblers, and non-dabblers alike, managed by the fantastic Abby Matthews that's in the chat here with us. So head on over there, meet some new writer friends, and share when you accomplish something. I want to pull up a message that I didn't highlight before. Bear with me for a second here. Or maybe I'll find it afterwards. Oh, here. I would love a thread with people's SMART goals on the cafe. That would be totally inspirational. So I encourage everyone here to head on over to the cafe, or after you've watched this later, head on over to the cafe, share your goals in whatever thread we post there to share them. But also when you reach those goals, especially the short-term ones might be coming up pretty soon, share your wins. I love seeing people encourage one another over in the cafe. It is one of my favorite things about my job, is seeing writers lift other writers up. So please, please, please share. Also, if you've gone through our Finish Your First Draft course, which is one of the 2 free courses we released on the cafe for all authors to take advantage of, you will know that you have to build a support, or you should build a support system when you're writing a book. And part of that support system will be your cheerleaders, whose sole responsibility in your support system will be to cheer you on and celebrate your wins and your successes. Use that. Tell them when you reach your goal, and they will just pump their fists into the air for you. Yes, you should, Abby says. All right. This last one, very important to me, and comes with a story. But don't you dare skip celebrating yourself. I don't care how small of a win it is. A win is a win. It's worth celebrating. And again, we're trying to get our brain to want more of them. So give yourself that little treatsy when you do something small. Give yourself a big treatsy when you do something big, right? It might not feel like it's worth celebrating sometimes. And sometimes you'll finish a chapter or a draft and you'll just sigh and be like, I'm so glad that's over because it's been such a long process. But celebrating adds value to your actions. It creates that positive feedback loop, and it reinforces that what you've been working so hard on is actually worth it. Now, I said this comes with a story. During the 60-day novel challenge, I wrote my lead magnet novella, right? And I actually finished it the week after the end of November. So forgive me. But I finished it, and then I just started working, started the workday. And then the next day I just went right back into finishing my writing my first draft of my next book. And normally my Doug, you finished writing a book reward is buying a bottle of Irish whiskey. It's a Writer's Tears, because I think that's hilarious that it's called Writer's Tears. It's actually pretty decent whiskey. It's an affordable price point. That's what I've done for all my other books. But I didn't do that, partially because I just felt like, oh, this task is over, time for the next one. Partially because some of you know I went away in November to my brother's wedding at an all-inclusive resort, and so I don't really, I haven't had anything to drink since then. So the idea of buying a bottle of whiskey when I don't want that is not super appealing. But as a result, I'm actually kind of disappointed with how I handled the success of finishing the first draft of something that is like 55,000 words long. Like, that's an important milestone, and I did not celebrate it, and thus it doesn't feel special to me. And so that's something I'm really disappointed in myself in, and why I'm including this tip here. And I don't want any of you to do the thing that I did. Okay, celebrate yourself, the small wins and especially the big wins. Alrighty. The only other thing before we dive into the Q&A that I didn't include in the deck here, actually, let me go full Doug face, is what happens if you fail your goal? And some people might say failure is a strong word, and it is, but I always like to think of failure as more opportunity than, something to regret or something to be sad about. So what happens if you fail to reach your goal? What happens if the deadline passes, or you end up giving up on it, or something comes up and it has to wait? Again, that's fine. I talked about that gift of anonymity that Hank mentions every now and then. If that's you, then just recalibrate, take a step back, reassess what your needs are and what goal is actually attainable and what you can do, and just plan it again from there. If you aren't in that situation, if you're 10 books into your career and your fans are expecting a book by the end of the year, then you have a couple options. You recalibrate same way. You say, hey, it's not going to happen by then. You'll have it by whenever. Or you just keep working hard at it, regardless of what you do. Whenever you don't achieve a goal, I don't want you to think about it as a reason to no longer strive for goals. Okay. Everything can be adjusted. There are very few moments in your life where you fail to do something and it will have a catastrophic effect on you. There are those moments, right? But I think there are more perceptions of those moments than there are those actual moments. If you set a goal and you don't reach it by a deadline, or you feel like you have to give up on it and save it for another time, that is okay. Okay. Because remember, goals are supposed to work for you. And in this case, that goal did not work for you. Take a break, look at things again, and come up with a goal that does work for you. And now you've learned from one that didn't. So you're better equipped to help yourself in the future and achieve that future that you want. So that's my little 2 cents on what happens if you fail at a goal. But hopefully, if you take everything from here, you take the worksheet again, link below me somewhere in the description, should be the first line. If I did my job right, then you can take your goals, you can really flesh them out. You can go so far as to put them into your calendar so that you have these visualizations of when things need to be done by and what needs to be done to accomplish this thing. You have the ultimate goal, that very valuable, purpose-driven thing that all these other goals are leading up to. You have all these things in your toolkit now to be able to set effective goals that you can actually achieve. So go ahead and do that. So there is time for some Q&A. I'm going to do a quick scroll through the chat. Jane saying that it's never too late, Doug. Go do it now, in reference to my writer's tears story. And yeah, I'll think of something. The other thing is that, like, I don't like buying things for myself, and I often can't think of things that I want for myself. But I'll think of something, because it is important. It is important to reward yourself and acknowledge these important accomplishments. I use important too much there, but that's it. Emily here saying, thanks for highlighting the celebrating yourself. That feels harder than the writing, so you'll practice. I know. And this is something else we touch on in the Finish Your First Draft course, is that, or maybe in the Nano course. No, it's in the Finish Your First Draft course. There sometimes is guilt associated with writing, especially when you're early on in your writing career or journey, because you are often saying to those around you, to your friends and family, hey, I need to take this time to do this thing that is just about me, that is my ambition and my dream, and I need to do it essentially by myself. You'll leverage other people, you have your support system, you have your writing friends, but you are taking time just for you. You can feel guilty doing that. It can be really hard to practice actually doing that. And again, you have to work with the people around you to make that happen. So I totally understand that. Jane saying dinner with a better half. Yeah, well, I mean, it was her birthday recently, so we're actually doing that this weekend, but maybe I'll count. No, I won't count it, because again, that's minimizing it. I'll think of something, but I appreciate it. Abby already made a thread in the Storycraft Cafe for your goals. Go check it out and post them there. Abby, if you send me that link in Slack, I can share it here. I don't think YouTube will let you share it, but I can share it. And Athena saying here, I actually didn't write today, but the sprints earlier got you motivated, so thank you for that. Yes, I'll use this time to shamelessly plug as well that we are running 3 writing sprints every single week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Come and write words with us, with the Dabble team. So I don't think we have any questions, but just in case, I want to thank you all for attending here. An hour, just, if we don't count the time that I was letting people trickle in and the internet do its thing, we're like right at the hour. It's magnificent. But thank you for attending. Thank you for participating. Thank you for sharing your goals with me. And hopefully through this, I've been able to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve this year. If you have questions or comments, email me at doug@dabblewriter.com. Post your things on the Storycraft Cafe. Honestly, I will hold you to them. If you post them publicly, I will write them down. I will check them every now and then I will harass you. about whether or not you're accomplishing your goals, but in a really kind way, right? In a really supportive way. Awesome. Yes. Okay, let me quickly post this link before everyone signs off. And if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to share any of the things down in the comments about what you want to accomplish, what you found valuable. If you have any questions or whatnot, this will be available for replay for, again, time immemorial or a heat death of the universe. And the worksheet will be available until then, too. So make sure to grab that from the link below. I really appreciate everyone joining today and participating in this workshop with me or just watching. Are there any other events I can shamelessly plug? With Dabble Premium, we have a workshop on Tuesday, but otherwise we have 3 writing sprints next week as per usual now. All right, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you later. Bye.